Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tavern. I'm the Dapper Bard. Today, we're talking about Dumuzid, one of the most important gods of the ancient world. No, seriously. So, there's a lot to say about this guy. First off, let's go off one key important point. He has three names: Dumuzid, Dumuzi, and Tammuz. This is because the legend and myth of this deity has been around for over 7,000 years, and the name itself has changed, whether it was the Sumerian name, the Akkadian name, or the Babylonian name. So a lot of it has to do with region and time period. I will sometimes use these names interchangeably because the legends and stories, or at least the most famous legends and stories, will swap up his name occasionally. So bear with me. But for the most part, I will refer to him as Dumuzid. One story claims that he was an antediluvian king of a small nation. For those who don't know, the antediluvian period is the time period before the great flood from the Bible. Yeah, that's part of his legend too. And after the flood, became one of the kings of the great city of Uruk, which was the major capital of the ancient world. In fact, a few generations down the line, you would have King Gilgamesh, one of the most famous epic heroes of all time, whose legends live on even today. But that's a story for another time. Let's focus on our main story. Now, the most famous early story of Dumuzid is his courtship of Inanna, also known as Ishtar. The most famous recounting of this is in a poem called Inanna Prefers the Farmer, wherein a wealthy farmer and Dumuzid as a shepherd both showed up to try to woo the goddess. And for those who don't know, Inanna, Ishtar, is the goddess of love, beauty, wealth, luck, war. She ended up taking a lot of other gods' powers and statuses and asked her father for more and more power over the years. She's a Gordian's knot of crazy that I don't entirely want to get into right now, but we will eventually, I promise. So both of them go to Inanna to woo her. And initially she prefers the farmer. He has a lot to provide and a lot to give, while her brother, Utu, wants Dumuzid to be her consort. So he and Dumuzid help taking their time and waiting it out, because the gifts of the farm will eventually have to stop as it takes time to harvest new crops. While a shepherd always has his flock. There's always something that can be provided, whether it's meat, whether it's materials to make cloth, and importantly, the gift of Dumuzid, milk. Milk was highly important. Not only was it a rare drink, because again, there was no way to store it, so you had to get it fresh and then enjoy it. You couldn't just store it in your fridge for later. There were no fridges. In addition to that, milk obviously can become yogurt and cheese. Although let us keep one thing in mind. This isn't cow's milk. This is the Middle East. It's goat's milk. Yum. Anyhow, he wins her over and they end up becoming a couple. And through their coupling, Dumuzid becomes a god. He becomes God of Shephards and the god of the bounties of nature. Interesting side note about that poem, when they finally become a couple, all subtlety is lost. It is strangely like dirty.
You were right. It's not subtle. See?
Then again, it's Inanna / Ishtar, so I shouldn't be too surprised. The next major story for Dumuzid is, of course, his death. Now, interestingly enough, there are two versions of this. One is told by the cult of Ishtar, wherein he was killed by bandits. But that, to me, doesn't feel right and doesn't fit with how the myth is usually told. So we're going to take the bandit story and just kind of put that aside. It's not really that important, but it should be referenced as a footnote. Here's the version that almost everyone else knew in the ancient world for quite some time. Ishtar, in her infinite wisdom, invades the netherworld and challenges her sister to a duel and loses. She is then trapped in the underworld. And, well, the problem is when you lose the goddess of fertility and love, well, that can have an impact on humanity. So her brother Utu, god of the sun, as referenced in the previous story, goes down into the underworld, goes to his sister and says, please let Inanna free. We kind of need her so that humanity can continue to that whole existence thing. And Ereshkigal, goddess of the underworld, says, no, she invaded my land. She should be punished. So Utu goes up to their father of all the gods, god of wisdom, and says, oh, dear father, you need to convince sister to let Ishtar go, because if she doesn't, humanity is kind of dead. So he goes down and says, let your sister go. She's been punished long enough. And Ereshkigal goes, fine, father, I shall. However, I demand a soul for a soul. If she is to be freed, then I need a soul to take her place in the netherworld. Inanna then leaves the netherworld to find someone to replace her. She sees that her handmaiden is still in mourning. She sees her beautician has broken down into tears at knowing that Ishtar has the chance to live again. Her high priestess is still wearing black and is still in tears. And then she sees her husband. And he is wearing lavish clothes, eating a feast, and enjoying a spectacle of beautiful women doing very sexy dancing. She loses it, points to him, and the Gala demons essentially grab him and send him straight down to Ker, the ancient netherworld, wherein he is tortured because we're demons, why not? And not like Ereshkigal cares that her brother-in-law is being tortured. Utu, seeing his friend in trouble, uses his powers to transform Dumuzid into an animal. Now, some tellings say he is a flying snake, and in others he is a stag, which are very distinctively different animals. He tries to escape, but unfortunately he's not fast enough and he is captured again. Upon hearing of his death, Dumuzid's sister, Gishtiana, is completely distraught. Now, she is the goddess of dream interpretation and the goddess of the fields and agriculture. If he represents the animal side of a farm, she represents the plant side of the farm. She goes down and says, please free my brother, please. I can't handle the thought of never seeing him again. And Ereshkigal goes, I'll free him under one stipulation. You split the time with him. So half the year, Gishtiana is in the underworld, and the other half of the year, Dumuzid is in the underworld. And this represents the cycle of seasons. Now, you need to understand that the Middle East, especially in that time period, did not have like a 4-season type structure. Instead, you're looking at the intensely hot summer type season and a much cooler type season. In the hotter summer season, you're looking at more of a time for planting your crops and kind of waiting out the rough weather. And obviously in the cooler season, it is the time to take care of your animals because you can bring them out without having them exhausted or constantly in need of water. So during the hot blazing summers, Dumuzid is trapped in the underworld. And during the cooler time, Gishtiana is trapped in the underworld. And this provided a cycle of seasons wherein farming is important during one time of year and shepherding is important during another time of year. And that is the tale of Dumuzid, but his legacy lives on. It is believed that his story helped inspire the story of Adonis and Aphrodite in Greek mythology, although that's a very different story and definitely a story for another time. I'm not getting into that right now. It's a little weird. In addition to that, the cult of Tammuz, as I said earlier, one of his alternate names, alongside the cult of Ishtar, lived on for literally thousands of years, about 6,000 or 7,000, depending on how far you want to believe the cult was still around and what evidence we have of the ancient world. As I said at the beginning, he is one of the most important gods of the ancient world, and now you know his story. So thank you for watching. If there's any ancient gods you'd like me to discuss, please let me know in the comments. And please subscribe if you want to see more of my stories, both the past ones, which are a lot of fun, and all of the future ones that we'll be doing very soon. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the tavern.